The Ancient Egyptian City of Thebes, The History and Legacy of the Capital that Became Luxor, by Charles River Editors, narrated by Colin Fluxman. Introduction. Let Agamemnon offer me the wealth of Egyptian Thebes, the richest city in the whole world, which has 100 gates, through each of which 200 may drive at once with their chariots and horses, but not even so shall he move me. Homer, the Iliad. Africa may have given rise to the first humans, and Egypt probably gave rise to the first great civilizations, which continue to fascinate modern societies across the globe nearly 5,000 years later. From the library and lighthouse of Alexandria to the Great Pyramid at Giza, the ancient Egyptians produced several wonders of the world, revolutionized architecture and construction, created some of the world's first systems of mathematics and medicine, and established language and art that spread across the known world. With world-famous leaders like King Tut and Cleopatra, it's no wonder that today's world has so many Egyptologists. In just a few lines of his renowned Iliad, Homer immortalized in writing what the Thebans had immortalized in stone nearly a millennium before. Thebes of the 100 Gates was home to some of the most splendid relics of the religion, history, and art of ancient Egypt, and indeed of all the ancient world. As Thebes grew from an unimportant settlement to the richest city in the ancient world, unparalleled in its beauty and splendor, nearly all of its leaders left his or her mark in the form of one or more legendary monuments. At the great temple complex to Amun-Ra at Karnak, the temple to Amun-Ra at Luxor, and the mortuary temples and tombs of the Valley of the Kings. As Thebes underwent the dramatic changes that came with its 3,000 years of political shifts, religious reforms, and ritual changes, not to mention its sometimes abrupt changes in fortune, its monuments grew and changed with it. The study of the fascinating archaeology of these sprawling structures thus provides an excellent point of entry for understanding nearly all aspects of Theban history and culture. The ancient Egyptian city of Thebes, the history and legacy of the capital that became Luxor, examines the history of the city and the architecture of the ancient Egyptian capital. Chapter 1. Early History. Like all such magnificent projects, the great monuments of Thebes were not built in a day. In fact, the settlement of Thebes predates the construction of its major monuments by at least a millennium. Archaeologists at El Tarif, a site located on the west bank of the Nile at Thebes, have unearthed stone artifacts, pottery, and parts of buildings, all of which indicates that Thebes was settled at some point during the late Neolithic period from 3700 to 3300 BCE. The finds at El Tarif are relatively meager, and while archaeologists suspect that there were larger areas of settlement now buried beneath the alluvium of the Nile, they have found no evidence that early Thebes was of any more or less importance than its neighboring settlements. By the end of the third millennium, Egypt, under the government of the Old Kingdom pharaohs, 2686 to 2181 BCE, had achieved its first continuous peak of civilization. However, despite some evidence of royal building activity at Thebes during this period, a small temple to Amun may have been constructed at Karnak during the Old Kingdom period, Thebes was still nothing more than a relatively unimportant settlement. That said, any settlement which was not at Memphis, the capital of the empire at the time, was relatively unimportant during the Old Kingdom period. Nearly all the wealth of the Egyptian empire went to glorifying the pharaohs of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th dynasties at Memphis, and to the construction of their extravagant tombs in the legendary pyramids on the opposite side of the Nile at Giza, Saqqara, Dashur, and Meidum. Since the pyramid industry demanded nearly all the materials and labor available within the empire, significant local building projects were all but impossible. The beginning of the Theban ascent to prosperity is contemporaneous with the collapse of the Old Kingdom government and its pyramid industry at Memphis. At the end of the 21st century BCE, 3 successive Theban warlords, Inhotep I, Inhotep II, and Inhotep III, took advantage of the growing Egyptian power vacuum by styling themselves as pharaohs. Although the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?